Welcome to the Miss Pursuit podcast, the show that will inspire you to pursue an extraordinary outdoor lifestyle. I'm Carly Brasso, founder and CEO of Miss Pursuit, and we are obsessed with all things outdoors. We're here to help you on your messy and magical journey of getting outside. The tried and true secrets, tips, and tricks for starting, learning, and advancing your skills and passion for the outdoors. Shy away from real talk? Nope, not here. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the awesome of hunting, fishing, guns, archery, and wild game are all what you'll find here. Pull up a seat, get cozy, and be ready to be challenged and motivated while you learn. This is the Miss Pursuit podcast. Today we're talking with Dr. Matthew Hughes, the engagement manager for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, and he also oversees the Stewards of the Wild program. Matt received his doctorate degree in Parks and Rec Management from Clemson University, and since then he's dedicated his life to helping people get outside and enjoy everything the outdoors has to offer. Okay, Matthew, welcome to the Miss Pursuit podcast. But my first question for you is, do I call you Matthew or Dr. Matthew or Matt or whatever, because you have your doctorate, right?
I do have my doctorate, yes. And you can call me whatever you like. Matt's fine. Matthew's fine. Some people like to call me Dr. Wild or Dr. Parks, whatever you want to do. But Matt's fine for this particular case.
Okay, so we'll just call you Matt, probably. Yeah. So we have been trying to connect for a couple of months. I was going to be on your podcast.
Yes.
Pouring rain, Mother Nature totally got us out. I was going to try and come and work something out. We just have not been able to connect. So here we are, and I want to chat with you a little bit. Can you kind of start with telling me about you and your outdoor experience, how you got started?
Yeah, well, I'll start kind of right now. I work at Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, and I oversee the Stewards of the Wild program. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation is the official nonprofit of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. So we raise private funds to help support what the department has going on. It might be helping reopen a state park, and maybe helping with the game wardens, and maybe helping after hurricanes, anything like that the department has a need for, we help raise private funds for. Myself, personally, I grew up farming and ranching in South Texas, went to Texas A&M, spent some time in Hawaii, then worked in the national parks, and then went to Clemson, got my doctorate and in Parks and Recreation Management. I specifically focused on studying the impacts of outdoor recreation on rural economies. And then, my wife and I moved to South Florida. I managed some parks and recreation facilities in Sarasota County, and then in Miami-Dade County. We decided to start a family, came back to Texas, got this great job with Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, overseeing the Stewards program. And, here I am. I've been with the foundation for about 4.5, almost 5 years.
Okay. So A&M guy. Yep. I'm a Texas Tech girl, so we have a little bit of rivalry. So all my family they're all Aggies. I was like the black sheep of the family who went to Tech. And I'll tell you, so I was a freshman, my first A&M Tech game, I'm sitting there up in the stadium. The core is right next to us.
Yes.
And the Tech fans are being such assholes. Screaming, yelling, cussing at them. And I'm like, I got very emotional, tearing up, because I was like, oh, but it's the core. And that's how I was raised, going to all, midnight yell and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I'm going to Tech with all these mean fans. Aren't we the worst fans ever?
That's how you make great rivalries, though, right? The good and the bad.
The good, the bad, and the ugly of rivalries. Okay, so tell me a little bit more. So you do the fundraising side for Texas Parks and Wildlife. What are some of those main fundraising keys that y'all really focus on or have the most need for?
Obviously, a big thing is our conservation outreach. Right now, our main priorities that we're doing are that we're raising funds for Palo Pinto Mountain State Park. That is a state park that should open up in the next few years. It'll be about an hour and a half west of Fort Worth, I believe. So that'll be a great new state park. That's one of our main fundraiser goals. But we also have a great program called Gear Up for Game Wardens, which is a program that we raise funds to help support the game wardens. And we on an as need basis, like I mentioned, we've helped support recovery efforts, on the coast after hurricanes. We helped reopen Balmorhea State Park when that had a crack in it, so we raised funds for that. We did so very quickly. And one of our crown jewels that we've done over the past 10 years was we helped facilitate the fundraising for Powderhorn Ranch State Park, which was one of the largest conservation land deals in the state. And so we helped purchase that with partnerships from Texas Wildlife Association, the Nature Conservancy, just a bunch of partners to raise funds to buy a part of property on the coast near Port O'Connor. And that will be eventually turned into, it's actually a wildlife management area now, and a portion of it will eventually be turned into a state park as well. So, just providing more opportunity, more access for everybody in Texas to enjoy the wild things and wild places.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit, this is off topic. You always hear, so when I got into hunting, you'd always hear like public land. And I was like, what are these public land hunters? # public land,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I kind of had to learn in Texas, we don't have much. How much public land do we have in Texas for hunting? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, the numbers, everyone quotes a different number. I would say probably somewhere between 3 and 5% of public land is available for Texans to hunt on.
Wow, that's like not very much.
Yeah, I mean, I can't give you an exact acreage amount. I would say that it's probably pretty competitive with other smaller states, but with a state of our size, it looks small, right? It looks not very big. It's definitely not. It's definitely not your Colorados and Idahos and stuff like that have a lot of public land opportunity.
Right. Okay. Okay. I want to talk to you too about Stewards of the Wild.
Of course.
Tell me who they are, what they are. What is this about?
Yeah. So, Stewards of the Wild came about in 2013 when a couple of guys from the Dallas area noticed that there lacked an opportunity for young professionals to meet each other and network revolving around conservation, right? There's conservation organizations that are amazing that are out there, your Ducks Unlimited, your CCAs, Park Cities Quail, TWA. These are all great conservation organizations, but they all lacked a focus on young professionals, right? And then there's also young professionals organizations that don't have any kind of conservation principles. So we wanted to create, or I should say they wanted to create, a young professionals organization revolving around conservation. And they did. They kicked that off in 2013 with our first Dallas chapter. Now we've grown in 7 years. Right before the pandemic, we had 10. We still have 10 chapters, but we had 1,000 members across the state. Our numbers dipped a little bit because of the pandemic, but they're growing back up rapidly. And, those chapters, they host anything from a happy hour where a game warden or a biologist may come and talk to a multi-day, trip where they may go to the Devil's River or West Texas, or a hunting trip, whatever suits the needs of that local community. On top of that, we also have statewide trips that we plan, and statewide mentor hunting and fishing trips that are coordinated through me and my office to provide resources for people all across the state. So it's an amazing organization. When I took this job, I imagined that we would be dealing with a lot of like outfitters and guides and really big backpackers and kayakers and stuff like that. That's not the case. These are all young professionals, bankers, lawyers, realtors, that kind of stuff, who are all, wanting to get more involved in the outdoors. And what we've seen is a lot of them are people who grew up going to state parks, grew up going to the family ranch, grew up doing those kind of things. But as they graduated from college, as they started their careers, as they started having families, they didn't have the same opportunities, and it took more effort. To get outside, right? So Stewards helps plan and facilitate those kind of opportunities for them, and all they need to do usually is buy a ticket, buy whatever kind of gear they may need and show up, and everything else is kind of curated for them.
So when I look at Stewards of the Wild and I've watched what y'all are doing, I was a very unactive member. But really, I mean, this is the next generation. And what we talk about a lot of conservation and what has happened and is happening. And that older generation, I hate to say it, but they're starting to fade out. And those were back in the day, you had your hunters and your this and your anglers. And as more people move into the city and more people that generation is starting to phase out.
Mm-hmm.
And it is these young kids, I say kids, I guess they're probably my age, but I'm a little older, I feel like, but that are the next ones that have got to help with fundraising and have to help with their time and have to help understand all of these ecosystems and how it relates to all of us. Really, we are the next stewards of what has to happen.
Well, it's there's been a couple points to that. One, I mean, it's been nice just in my time to see some of those individuals who were leaders in the chapters, step up and actually start. They have discretionary time and discretionary income now, right? So they're actually sponsoring TPWF events. They're actually sponsoring Stewards events. They're actually putting money that they have from their businesses because, they started out, I wouldn't say entry level, but they started out at their careers and have grown in their careers and actually have time to sponsor those, or money to sponsor those things, which is awesome to see. And that's kind of what, we hoped would be the long run of this program too. It's amazing to see so many stewards actually get plugged in to other conservation organizations. I always tell our members, like I would love to see stewards be kind of a gatekeeper for young professionals into those other conservation organizations, right? So we want to bring your CCAs and your Ducks Unlimited and your TWAs and all those guys in Dallas Safari Club. We want to bring them to the table, let people find out what interests them in the outdoors through stewards, go join those organizations, support their causes, and bring that message back to the stewards to have this holistic message of these are all the great conservation programs going on out there, and here's how we can help. A great example is Raymond Morrow, who was a steward member. Then he became part of the advisory council in the Dallas chapter, then a co-chair, and now he's the president of Park Cities Quail. So to see that kind of growth is really awesome. And we have other members who have now, because their involvement with stewards, are now working for Texas Wildlife Association. The new president of Texas Wildlife Association is a steward, right? So there's some great connections there. And the last point I want to make is also during that same time period, there's a lot of great youth organizations that exist in to help get kids out. That really isn't where our swing zone is. But because we're bringing these young professionals in and they're starting young families, if we're getting them plugged into the outdoors, then that becomes a household conversation about being outside. So we are reaching, the 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds because their parents are now like, I really love hiking, or I really love hunting, or I really love fishing because of what I did at Stewards. So now they're having household conversations about conservation. So we really are reaching not just our generation, but a younger generation as well.
Well, I love what y'all are doing. I think I look at y'all too, and I think like y'all are cool. And maybe that's just because of the typical age range that y'all cover. I don't know. What would we say are the normal age of your members?
21 to 45 is kind of where our target is, but we have a little buffer on both sides that sometimes we have a few younger members, and then sometimes we have a few older members that, really love what we're doing and don't find a place in their community that suits their needs.
Yeah. And I just, when I look at other groups and maybe a Ducks Unlimited or maybe Dallas Safari Club, or, don't want to necessarily, but I do still see those as good old boy clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all are just kind of cool, right? Like you
Yeah,
are the people
I like
to
to think
me.
so.
that I relate to just based on my age and my interests and where I'm at in my career and
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts on conservation and hunt. Again, I'm hunting, so that's just
Yeah.
the word I always
Yeah.
use. Um, but y'all really do fit that demographic and make that demographic feel like we can be involved. You don't have to have 40 years at Dallas Safari Club to be able to be involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have a tangible, a tangible financial commitment of $85 memberships, right, and then $150 for couples, and that gets you kind of through the door. Each chapter rewards their members differently. Sometimes it's free happy hours, sometimes it's discounted tickets, sometimes it's exclusive offers. But yeah, and kind of like I said earlier, I mean, I want our Stewards members to get involved with Stewards, but then also uh, help facilitate relationships with your Dallas Safari clubs and CCAs and Ducks Unlimited, because I want them to, if you're really passionate about hunting or fishing or whatever, find out what organization is out there through Stewards of the Wild, to better suit your needs. That as will quote unquote age out of Stewards, you can go join those other programs. I mean, one of the things I think we've done really well for Stewards, we have a great photographer, Jonathan Vale. He does a great job of capturing, us in the outdoors. And, that's really helpful for social media and being involved and getting people's attention. But then, there's a whole constituency, as you very well know, of young business owners that are out there that are doing cool stuff like Corey at Chama Chairs, in Kansas at Pack Mule, Duck Camp and Poncho. Like, these guys are all our age. They've started businesses, and we're wearing their clothes. We're plugged into that young industry, and I think that's also really important. For our members to kind of be plugged into to that young industry.
Um, Let me write that down. Um, so how much does the fundraising for do membership fees for Stewards of the Wild get fed into Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation? So would I be supporting both, or are those separate?
They are separate. So that was one of the original things that they decided was going to be a nice benefit to having the Stewards program. So a chapter, say for instance, Dallas chapter, is pretty much. I mean, the funds go into the foundation, but they're dog-eared for that chapter. So every dollar that the Dallas chapter raises goes to the Dallas chapter. It doesn't disappear off to some entity. Like, if you go to some of these other organizations, they have a banquet, and then that money disappears off to the national organization and it trickles back down. In our case, every chapter is responsible for raising their own funds. They do that through membership, through earned income at events. They do that through sponsorships, but they're responsible for basically raising enough money to host another year of events. We don't take anything off the top. I say that we take a little bit of admin fees, right, for like insurance and stuff like that. But for the most part, we don't take any money from them. And what we ask of them is that they just continue to successfully host events that engage our demographic, right? So that could look like, for some chapters, it may mean that they've gotten a place to do an in-kind donation of the venue, right? And then they've gotten some in-kind donations. It didn't cost them anything and they didn't raise any money, but they hosted a successful event at net neutral. And that's really what we want them to do. We want them to find funds to help continue to run events for their community.
Right. So we've talked about this. Clearly, we see the importance of leisure, recreation, conservation. Um, let's just say, what are the benefits of recreation, leisure, conservation? I know those are all three very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, give me a dissertation on, but what are the benefits for whether you're a young professional or a family, kids, to get outside?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just from an economic standpoint, I mean, think about like what we all do for a living, and we do that so we can raise our own personal funds to do the things that we love to do, right? We spend about a third of our life engaged in our leisure and recreation pursuits, whether that be hiking, mountain biking, or hunting or fishing, or whatever the case may be, right? We spend a lot of our discretionary income to do that. leisure and recreation are critical components to our health and well-being. I think we saw that especially during the pandemic when everything was shut down. The state parks were still open. People were going outside in droves. Hunting and fishing license sales did great. Because people wanted to be out and doing the thing they loved doing. We saw more people out in the field, um, than ever before. And so, I think leisure and recreation are super important to our mental health and well-being, and to socializing with other individuals. And again, Stewards creates a great platform to meet other people who are passionate about the same things that you are.
That's what I mean, COVID, literally for all of the total crap
Yeah,
with COVID, it forced people to freak outside. You had no choice. You can't go to dinner. You can't go shopping at Target. You can't go to the mall. You can't do anything except for go
yeah,
outside. And I think that was a huge benefit to our community. Um, it, you were forced to just have to kind of take a step back and think, okay, what can I do with my kids today? What
hmm
can my husband and I go do this weekend for a date?
exactly. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
really, you have one choice.
yeah, yeah,
Is to go outside.
yeah,
And that really helped, I think, everybody to understand, kind of turn a light bulb on for a lot of people, that it's okay to slow down. It's okay to just go for a walk. It's okay to go to a state park. It's okay to go to one of the nature preserves and
yeah,
just walk,
yes,
bird
yeah.
watch, hunt,
Just get
whatever that
outside.
is. It really just forced everyone to look around.
Yeah.
Um, well, we've mentioned a little bit briefly about social media. You were saying about some photos, and the I think, social media again has some really bad parts of it.
hmm
Um, but I think social media has made the outdoors cool.
Yeah.
Like there are definitely the photos and the stuff, but it has helped, generally speaking. I think my generation, or the generation under me, I don't know where I really stand. I like to pretend like I'm a lot younger than I really am. But I think get outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, social media, I think, continues to have, I think, yeah, it continues to have its problems, and it has been beneficial. When you think about our generation and where they go to find information or inspiration to do the things they want to do, I think they're looking at social media, their Facebooks, their Snapchats, their Instagrams, all that kind of stuff. So they want to know where to go, what to do. They see that beautiful picture of the waterfall. They want to go and explore that, and that's definitely the upside to that. The downside to that is, making sure that people who see these things and want to go experience them know how to respect those things, and appreciate the outdoors. And I think that's where programs like Stewards, as well as y'all, right, is informing and educating people on, the proper way to explore the outdoors, the proper way to interact with wildlife, the proper way to interact with our creeks and streams and oceans and stuff like that. So I think as long as conservation organizations continue to share the message of how to, be healthy in the outdoors and protect the outdoors, we can continue to share that message. We've seen so many times on social media people, in Yellowstone getting too close to bison, or, unfortunately falling off a cliff or something, getting too close to take that beautiful picture. But those are obviously downsides. Again, the upside is that we're getting to share these awesome things. And there is some accountability to that too, right? There's some accountability that happens on social media. If you're misbehaving and you're posting that, or you're posting something bad, people are going to call you out for treating something improperly.
Yeah. I maintained pretty neutral, and there was one account, I swear, pissed me off so bad, but it was a hunting, and they were like, I reported them because I was like, this is what gives us bad names. Like,
Yeah.
we still have to be stewards of our sport, that and these things, you do still have to have some couth um, about how we do represent ourselves, and that
hmm
is a part of the social media, as far as, hey, look at all this trash, we decided to stop, pick some of it up on our way out of town,
hmm
or these things that we still have to show how life is, and how we do protect
Yeah.
um, the things that we love the most.
Well, and I think too we've seen a bit of a transition, at least I think, especially with the urban population, right? Is that hunting and the conversation around hunting needs to be more focused on the conservation principles, and then your dinners and how to cook and how to clean, and breaking down some of those barriers. I think we've seen a long history of like the grip and grin photos, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but when you just have that photo and no context, and people see those things, it can upset people, and I think as long as, again, conservation organizations are out there spreading the message of the importance of hunting licenses and the importance of Pittman Robinson Act, funds and where those monies are going, and it's same thing with you see someone post a picture of them killing a lion in Africa, right? With no context, it can bother people, right? But, you know, we conservationists know that those people who spent all that money to go do those things, a lot of that money goes back into the community from where that animal came from, and a lot of it goes to those countries and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, without context in the day of social media, it can be troubling, but I think if we continue to do a good job of sharing the message of conservation, we'll continue to be successful.
I love that. That's well said. Okay, when we first started, you said you studied the effects of outdoor recreation on rural America. Am I quoting you right on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What are the effects of outdoor recreation on rural America?
Uh,
That piqued my attention. I was like, okay.
I mean, so what I kind of looked at holistically is the idea of, like, these rural communities who have natural resources that are around them, and how can they leverage those resources to better suit the community. A great example I like to use, um, that I did study on, was the Hatfield Mcquoid trail system in West Virginia. It's a OHV, off highway vehicle trail system that a bunch of small rural communities that were all coal mining towns that had all essentially shut down the coal mines were like, we have all these empty coal mines and we have all these empty trails and stuff like that. What are we going to do with it? So they converted it all to trail systems, and that has basically sustained, jobs and towns. And I mean, the economic impact is massive. Because I don't want to give numbers specifically, but it's massive across the United States. It's massive across the world. And again, we spend a lot of our time and money in outdoor recreation. And so, we hunting and fishing and off highway vehicle and backpacking, think about all those gatekeeper communities that exist at national parks. Those would not be there without the national parks. It's everywhere, and it's extremely important for rural economies to have outdoor space for people to recreate and participate in, because it helps support the diners, and it helps support the gas stations, and it helps support pretty much everybody in rural communities. I mean, I think of Albany, Texas, where we're about to go have a dove hunt. It's probably a population of maybe a couple thousand, if that. But we're going to have 100 and something stewards there. We're booking up the hotel rooms. We're going to eat there. It's a big important impact for them. Dove hunting in that area.
So what have we missed? What did we not cover? I want you, Dr. Matt, to give us your call to action for Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, Stewards of the Wild. What can we do?
I mean, first I would say, if you have a Stewards of the Wild program in your community, go check it out. There's always an event where you don't have to even join to just come and see what it's all about and hear from the stewards. I would assume most people that experience that will want to join and be a member, but there's amazing, great organizations to help support. If you love the state parks, if you love what TPWD does, help support the foundation, get involved with Stewards of the Wild or Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation. Beyond that, if you're passionate about a certain type of conservation, whether that be ducks or white-tailed deer or whatever, find those organizations that support those things and get involved, even if it's just signing up for their basic level membership, because you'll get emails about what's going on in those communities, with those wildlife, and to be better informed. If we can better inform our individuals, they'll vote. They'll spend money. Those are all important things to the future of conservation in the state of Texas.
Okay, one last thing. What are 3 must-have items you can never leave your house without?
Oh man, Turtle Box, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. What the heck is that?
Turtle Box is an outdoor speaker designed by some people in Houston. It's an outdoor speaker. It's waterproof. It's really loud. But it's really good. I mean, it's a really good product. It's really clear. It's Bluetooth. It's waterproof. The new ones, you can actually charge your phone off of them. But for an outdoor person, it's the best speaker I've ever had. And I think music is. I mean, if you think about, going to around the campfire or hanging out at deer camp or whatever, music's almost always involved, right? So having a great speaker that stands up to that is awesome. So I love my Turtle Box. Being out in the field, I always use the Chama chair, pursuit chair. That's a great product too. Very, very durable, adjustable legs, adjustable back. I mean, it spins, it pivots and swivels and all that kind of stuff. And it's a great camp chair. It's a great hunting chair. We use it in blinds. We use it just sitting around the field. I'll use it. I've already used it in dove season. So I love those things. And then also love the pack mule. That's one thing that we use. Kansas starting out of, he's in New Braunfels now. They're also from Texas. No, I should say Corey from Chama Chairs. They're from Dallas. But the pack mule is also an amazing product. It's very well made. It's basically something. It's a rack you put on the back of your car. It's made out of aluminum, so it's super lightweight. And yeah, it's very durable. It can carry your whole harvest if that's what you wanted to do. If you're in a family like me, and you can pack everything on the back of that and put it on the back of a Ford Explorer or whatever you want to kind of get out in the field. Again, Kansas. I mean, like all these guys, they spend a lot of time in research and development, to design that. And Kansas did a great job of utilizing his family to see like how can we better make this thing, and that's awesome. Of course, got to give a shout out to my guys at Duck Camp. They're my number one go-to hunting clothing company for me personally. I love their gear. So.
Okay, those are good ones. I love hearing people say, because it's always random. Like I had one girl and she was like, "I love tiger's blood," and I was like, "What on earth is wrong with you?" But I guess it's like a mountain ops energy drink, and people have said their headlamp, they're like, this is the best headlamp in the world. It's just crazy to like hear everybody's kind of go to. Matt, thank you so much for being on. Sorry it took us a little bit of back and forth, but I appreciate you coming on. I loved hearing about Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, Stewards of the Wild. Hopefully some of our audience and some of our listeners will join their local chapters and head over to y'all's website and see if there's a way that they can donate or get involved.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Be sure to find out more about the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation at tpwf.org, and you can find more on Stewards of the Wild at tpwf.org/SOTW. Become a member and support the foundation. And as always, head over to misspursuit.com, read our amazing blogs. Thanks so much for listening to the Miss Pursuit podcast. Stay outside, and we will see you next week.